What you are about to see is a simulation of ghost phenomena from real people's experiences. For privacy, we need to use different names instead of the real names of those sharing their experiences. Many things in this world, as you see, you might not understand. Have you ever felt that someone is watching you from behind, right now, from beside you? In this image, you may not see them, but believe that. Sometimes you can feel it, even just a little, or perhaps someone has returned from the afterlife to find you. From this moment on, you will confront the unknown and open the door to this terrifying story. It's just the two of us. This is the story of a girl named Yuki who has just lost her mother, and unfortunately, her father cannot take care of her by himself. He leaves her with her aunt. Yuki dislikes being left alone, which causes her to cling to her aunt all the time, making her aunt's daughter jealous and tell Yuki not to cling to her mother so much. One day, the aunt has to hire a babysitter to take care of Yuki because she and her daughter need to go out for errands. That night, the babysitter reads a story and lulls Yuki to sleep, then gets up to go to the bathroom. At that moment, Yuki's stuffed toy falls down, and the babysitter notices a burn mark on its foot. After she goes to the bathroom for just a moment, Yuki wakes up crying and hides in the corner of the room, frightened by something. The babysitter rushes to comfort her and helps Yuki back to bed. But in the middle of the night, Yuki cries out again, saying she sees a figure that is black. When the babysitter looks around, she encounters the figure of a woman who appears to be burned, standing there. The next morning, the aunt and her daughter return home, and the babysitter asks the aunt how Yuki's mother died. Upon hearing this, the aunt pauses for a moment and says that Yuki's mother was burned to death, but the fire was started by Yuki's mother herself, who set herself on fire. They then hold a small funeral, while Yuki is still unaware that her mother has died. The aunt does not want to tell Yuki right now, because Yuki is fearful when left alone, and she has mentioned seeing a figure that is black, which likely refers to her mother. However, Yuki does not yet realize that this is her mother. Soon after, Yuki is passed on to other relatives, and now she does not even know which relative she is with. But the truth is, her mother is still with her wherever she goes. Three people are coming. This is the story of a female student who has just finished class and is on her way home. While she is in the elevator, it suddenly gets stuck. She tries to contact for help, and the staff informs her that they are sending 3 people to assist her. She urges them to hurry, but suddenly, she becomes suspicious as to why they need to send 3 people. While waiting, it seems that a hand comes from behind to choke her, causing her to fall. When she tries to look, she finds no one there. Just a moment later, another hand comes to choke her as well. She struggles to survive until she starts to lose consciousness, and then it releases her. She is shocked by what has happened and does not understand what it is, until the staff mentions sending 3 people. Before she can resolve her confusion, the lights in the elevator come back on, and it descends to the first floor. The door opens normally, but she feels a strange energy behind her. When she turns around, she sees no one, only her bag that she left behind. She picks it up and is about to leave the elevator, when suddenly, a third hand appears from the bag and chokes her. As the staff mentioned, they will send 3 people. Copier. This is the story of 2 students at school who are asking about their friend Chihiko, who did not come to school today. They think Chihiko might be sick, which is why she couldn't come. While they are doing their fresh diary, one friend notices that the paper she photocopied has something unusual. They suspect it might be due to a dirty photocopier, causing the copied documents to have faded images. However, they wonder why the fading only appears on Chihiko's face and is the same on every sheet, which is very strange. Therefore, they decide to try photocopying the image again. During that time, Chihiko's phone called, but their phones were left on the desk in the classroom. The image of Chihiko on the desk also had the same fading as the photocopied documents. The image they tried to photocopy again remained unchanged. Just as they were trying to observe the abnormalities with the photocopier, it suddenly slammed down hard, but fortunately, one friend managed to pull her hand away in time. Suddenly, the photocopier printed something out, which looked like a surveillance camera image showing that Chihiko was being attacked with a stick, hitting her head until she collapsed. At that moment, the photocopier continued to capture images of Chihiko lying still until they noticed that it seemed like Chihiko's spirit had left her body. Before the photocopier stopped working, at that moment, Chihiko's spirit appeared nearby, unnoticed by the two friends, and after that, they never returned to the classroom again. Blue Raincoat. This is the story of a student couple, Takeshi and Amy. That day, Amy came to help Takeshi with his homework, and he made pasta to repay her. While they were flirting, Amy, feeling shy, mentioned that the water was boiling and told him to check it. After a while, there was a sound of someone ringing the doorbell at Takeshi's house, where he was busy cooking. He asked her to check instead. When she opened the door, she encountered a girl in a blue raincoat standing there. The girl said she was a volunteer and extended her hand to ask for donations, but Amy replied that she was just a student and had nothing to donate, apologizing before closing the door. But Amy was curious why the girl outside was wet when it wasn't raining, wearing a raincoat, and holding an umbrella. The two of them went back to look at the door and noticed water stains on the floor where the girl had been. They tried not to think much of it, but suddenly, Takeshi disappeared from the room. When she went to look for him, she was shocked to find him, and he pulled her onto the bed in the bedroom, trying to get intimate with her. Amy was startled and ran out of the room. But Takeshi followed her and hugged her. Suddenly, a hand from the girl reached out and touched her face, saying, "Please," which made Amy jump. When she looked around, the girl in the blue raincoat appeared behind the door. Shocked, she backed up and bumped into another door, and the girl appeared behind her again. Seeing this, Amy quickly gathered her things to go home, causing her boyfriend to wonder what was wrong. But when she turned to face him, she found the same girl standing behind him, making her think that Takeshi might have had a child before, but the child might have died. And now the girl was following him, seeking the love that Amy had, just like what she might have received from a mother. The Smell of Animals. This is a story about cousins, where the pregnant sister named Kinoyo receives a visit from her younger sister Ai-chan, who comes to congratulate her. Upon entering the room, Ai-chan notices odor eliminators placed around the house, and Kinoyo mentions that her room has a strange smell, so she placed them in several spots. Ai-chan says she doesn't smell anything, but Kinoyo insists that the smell remains, resembling that of animals or something. Ai-chan thinks that perhaps someone before them had pets in the room, but Kinoyo states that the apartment does not allow pets. Just as Ai-chan is still curious, Kinoyo's husband, Aikuo, returns home, and she introduces him to Ai-chan. Upon seeing Aikuo, Ai-chan reacts strangely, as they seem to have known each other before. While Aikuo is outside hanging clothes on the balcony, Ai-chan has a vision of a memory where Aikuo threw a puppy off a high building. Seeing this makes her feel a surge of violent emotions. She excuses herself to go to the bathroom, during which she notices the washing machine running and a strange smell wafting out. When she opens it, she sees what looks like the remains of a dead black cat inside, and another vision of Aikuo appears, revealing that he had once put a black cat in the washing machine and spun it. Ai-chan, having a sensitivity to such matters, can see or sense various stories. When she returns, she finds Aikuo in a rather poor state, prompting her to say she will get a first aid kit. As Ai-chan checks on him, she becomes frightened and asks if he enjoys killing animals. The smell of animals is a consequence of the karma from his past brutal acts of killing animals, which he was unaware of at the time. She tells him that no matter what, this smell will stay with him forever. Upon hearing this, he tells her not to mention it to his wife under any circumstances, with a look that suggests if she does, he cannot guarantee what will happen to her. This is the story of Yoko, a girl who feels very sleepy. At that moment, during her school selection, she is traveling home with her close friend, Midori, who mentions that she saw Yoko napping in class, and even during breaks, she was sleeping on the bench. Midori asks Yoko if her extreme drowsiness indicates something unusual, as she often naps whenever she has the chance. Midori speculates that Yoko might be trying to escape from something. However, Yoko reassures her that Midori is overthinking, as she is just feeling sleepy. Midori then inquires about Yoko's relationship with her stepmother, asking if they get along well. Yoko replies that there are no issues, and that they are very close, almost closer than she is with her real mother. Midori then congratulates her. As the two reach a fork in the road, they say goodbye and head home. When Yoko arrives home, she notices her stepmother cooking. She walks in to ask what's for dinner, but her stepmother doesn't turn or respond, continuing to cook. Seeing this, Yoko goes to her room, feeling sad because she and her stepmother are not as close as she told Midori. After a while, she hears the front door open, and when she goes to check, she sees another version of herself entering the house. This surprises her, as she feels confused about what is happening. She sees herself having gone through the same situation before, which adds to her confusion. Suddenly, another version of herself enters the house, and her actions and demeanor mirror her own. She notices that this latest version of herself causes her stepmother to turn and talk to her, embracing her and saying she is happy that Yoko called her mother for the first time. However, in that instant, her stepmother's expression changes, and she raises a knife to stab her in the back, causing Yoko to wake up startled, realizing it was all a dream. Yet, as she wakes, she still hears the sound of another version of herself returning home. Could this be her spirit? That must return to die every time, because her stepmother has already killed her. The Visitor. This is a story about a close friend named Saki, who has been acting strangely lately and hasn't returned to school, claiming to be ill. Reina, her concerned friend, goes to visit Saki at home that day and knocks on the door. However, when Saki comes down and looks through the peephole, she sees no one, so she decides to go back upstairs. The knocking at the door continues, leading her to suspect someone might be playing a prank on her. She then peeks through the window and sees the bloodied figure of a woman wandering at the front door, which frightens her. Despite her fear, She tries to ignore it, but as she is about to head back upstairs, she is shocked to see the woman appear at the top of the door, seemingly staring at her. The knocking then turns into loud banging on the door. After a moment, Rina's voice calling her breaks the tension, and Saki walks to the door again, finding it is indeed Reina. Saki asks Reina if she saw anyone at the door earlier, but Reina replies she didn't see anyone, and came to bring the lessons and tests they studied today before heading back out. The next evening, Saki tries to call her mother to come home quickly because she doesn't want to be alone, but her mother is busy and can't return early. Meanwhile, there is a constant sound of someone knocking at the door. Saki sits by the door, watching the bloodied woman, and starts to feel less afraid. She decides to open the door to let her in, which results in the floor of her house being covered in blood. Saki tries to wipe it up when Reina visits her again, and notices the bloodstains on the floor that Saki is trying to clean. Suddenly, a bloodied hand reaches to open the door towards them, but Saki orders it to go away, causing it to close the door. Reina witnesses this chilling event and feels scared, saying she needs to go home. The scene shows the bloodied woman still peeking through the door, which may suggest that Saki has welcomed this spirit or entity into her home, akin to calling out to a voice in the night. Snapot. This is the story of Ai-chan, who went to karaoke with a group of friends in front of a shop. That day, it was pouring rain, and one of the male friends accidentally encountered a sad girl sitting in front of the shop. He invited her to join them for karaoke. Her name is Seiko. She is a quiet girl who always has a fearful look in her eyes. The male friends wanted to invite her to sing karaoke with them, but she declined. They tried to take pictures with her to create a lively atmosphere, and after a while, the lights in the shop went out. In the silence, there were sounds of heavy breathing and panting. Ai-chan shone her phone light on Seiko and found that she was scared and crying, saying that she was afraid of the dark and that a plane was coming again. After a while, the lights in the shop came back on, but Seiko still didn't feel better. Before leaving, everyone accidentally forgot Seiko in the bathroom. Ai-chan said they couldn't leave Seiko like that, so she walked back to find her. When she opened the door, she found Seiko curled up in the bathroom, saying that she was very hot, and that the fire from hell was burning her. Before Ai-chan could take her out, she left her at the front of the shop as before. After that incident, no one saw Seiko again. When Ai-chan saw the photo taken with Seiko that day again, she was speechless, because Seiko's outfit resembled that of people from the past. Out of curiosity, she asked the grandmother if anything had happened at that karaoke shop before. The answer shocked her, because the grandmother said that in the past, the area around the karaoke shop served as a refuge for women, children, and the elderly fleeing from war. Unfortunately, it was bombed by enemy planes, causing everyone inside to be burned alive, and Seiko was likely one of them. The Ghost of Ohasu Tenji. This is the story of a young boy named Sato, who was taking extra classes with a senior girl hired to teach him. He started to develop feelings for her. One evening, as Sato was about to doze off, he encountered a girl for just a moment. But suddenly she climbed on top of him, making him feel good. This happened for several nights, until the senior teacher noticed that Sato looked pale and weak. She asked him what was wrong, and he told her that he was being haunted by a ghost. She advised him to be careful. That night, Sato decided to move his sleeping place and slept in a blanket cupboard, leaving the door slightly ajar to breathe. However, at the same time, the girl appeared again and looked in at him. When Sato saw this, he quickly closed the cupboard door. But when he thought about it again, he realized that he also enjoyed the ghost's presence, which made him happy. Sato opened the cupboard door, and the girl came in to bring him happiness once more, causing a loud noise that echoed down to the lower floor. Hearing this, his father rushed upstairs and encountered Sato with the ghost girl. The father told Sato that what he suspected was true. It was the spirit of Ohasu Tenji. He explained that when he was a child, around Sato's age, and lived near the shrine, he also experienced the same thing every night. At first, he was scared, but he felt excited as well. He reassured Sato that there was no need to worry, because as Sato grew up, the girl would eventually disappear. Before leaving the room, he told Sato to continue, expressing a hint of jealousy because Sato was still young. The Greeting is the story of a female university student who comes to the countryside to interview interesting stories from the elderly about the past. At that time, she was interviewing an old man who recounted tales of past wars and mentioned that he had heard the laughter of Tenku, a deity resembling a human who can also fly in the sky. After that, she asked the old man if there were any other strange stories that had occurred. The old man then asked if that wasn't exciting enough, and wondered if the laughter of the deity Tenku wasn't interesting. Nevertheless, he thanked her for interviewing him about past stories today, to which she replied that his story was indeed good, and thanked him. As they were walking back, an old man carrying a bag passed by, and the old man greeted him. The old man replied that he had just felt back pain not long ago, and then walked past. However, shortly after, the same old man walked by again, and the old man greeted him the same way, which surprised her greatly. Before long, the same old man walked by again, and the old man greeted him in the same manner each time, with the old man responding the same way every time, which made her even more astonished. She then asked the old man if that was the same old man, having passed by twice already. The old man corrected her, saying it was 3 times, and suddenly, right in front of them, the same old man appeared for the 4th time. The old man then turned to whisper to her that what she saw was a mix of foxes and old men, and told her to look closely. After the old man greeted the 4th old man, they both turned around and clapped their hands, pausing for a moment. She felt stunned, and the old man apologized to the old man, saying he thought he was a fox or something. The old man replied that he thought the same. Suddenly laughter echoed in the sky, which was the laughter of the deity Tenku, before the old man and the old man turned to smile at her, and jumped towards her with the demeanor of wild animals. Music Box. This is the story of Kyoko, who accidentally meets Professor Hoshita, a teacher who once taught her in childhood at a friend's piano recital. He invites her to sit and chat about their lives at her home, and they discuss their childhood, which is very enjoyable as they reminisce about past events. Eventually, the professor introduces something for her to see, which resembles a treasure, but upon closer inspection, it turns out to be a music box. The professor says he got it from an antique shop, and starts to wind it up to produce beautiful music. But soon she began to hear what sounded like a man's voice whispering, which became clearer the more she focused on listening. Kyoko started to feel scared, and tried to tell the professor to stop winding it, but he refused to stop. The whispering grew increasingly clear until suddenly there was a loud noise from the 2nd floor, as if someone was running around. The music box also began to spin on its own. As the music played on, something on the 2nd floor continued to run back and forth without stopping, prompting the professor to quickly grab the music box and hold it still, silencing the footsteps and the music. When the professor opened the music box, he found nothing unusual or any mechanism that could make it turn by itself. Kyoko then asked the professor if there was anyone on the second floor. The professor replied that he was alone there. Out of fear, Kyoko asked to go home, but the professor tried to keep her there, as he felt scared too. However, when the professor set the music box down, it began to turn by itself again, playing music along with the wailing of a man. Both were very startled, as the sound started echoing throughout the house. Realizing the situation was worsening, they tried to stop it, but this time it felt as if some energy was trying to turn the music box. As it played a note, suddenly a leg appeared, descending the stairs. The professor struggled against the force, trying to keep it from turning, but ultimately he couldn't resist, and the music box slipped from his grasp, playing rapidly, which caused a ghost or something to come down towards them. The House of Restless Spirits. This is a story from the year 1984, when Yoko, a 12-year-old girl, moved into a new house because her father had to relocate for work. Her father's acquaintance recommended this house, which looked both old and frightening. Yoko noticed that the entrance to the house was strange, and her mother mentioned that the entrance faced an inauspicious direction. Once inside, everyone felt the atmosphere was quite unsettling. While exploring, Yoko's mother found soot marks on the wall, and her father suggested that someone might have set up an altar there. Additionally, Yoko noticed that everyone was wearing shoes, yet she saw black footprints on the floor, making her wonder if someone had entered the house before them. Eventually, Yoko's family moved in, and during the first week, there was a day when her mother went shopping for household items while her father left for work early. However, while Yoko was drawing in her room, she heard footsteps running back and forth in the hallway, leading her to think her father might have returned to get something. She called out for him, but there was no response, so she went out to check, but found no one. The next day, Yoko's mother was trying to wipe the footprints off the floor, but no matter how much she wiped, they wouldn't disappear. While she was focused on cleaning, she suddenly felt something behind her. When she turned around, she saw a man in black peeking through the door at her. However, in the blink of an eye, he vanished immediately. That evening, Yoko's father shared good news with everyone, because he had a friend recommending another house in the community, but they had to wait for confirmation before they could move in. Then, Yoko's mother told her to stop watching TV and go do her homework. Yoko got up and walked to her room immediately, before her mother called out that there would be dessert after dinner. However, the real Yoko was actually standing behind her, leaving her mother to wonder who the other Yoko was that had just walked out. The more she thought about it, the more frightened she felt about this house. Strange events began to occur continuously. On the day Yoko went to school, on her way, her shoelace came undone, so she bent down to tie it. At that moment, she thought she saw someone walking behind her. She tried to step aside, but when she turned to look again, there was no one around. Later that night, Yoko's mother screamed throughout the house because she felt someone touch her from behind, even though her father was turned away in the opposite direction. Since the day this family moved in, various events began to worsen, until finally, the mother could no longer endure it and told the father that she would move out with Yoko. The father pleaded with her and brought in a shaman to examine the house. When she arrived to perform the ritual, she sensed a malevolent energy. While the ritual was taking place, Yoko stepped outside and saw the man in black, standing across the street from the house, shaking his head at her. Feeling frightened, Yoko hurried back inside. After the ritual, the shaman warned them that they should leave the house immediately because it harbored something terrifying. There were many spirits bound to this house, and countless human skeletons were buried beneath it. Therefore, they should move out as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the people in the house would soon die. Finally, Yoko's family decided to move out immediately, as the shaman advised. Shortly after, Father recounted that there was a family that had lived in that old house, and one by one, family members experienced tragic events leading to their deaths. You want to see something that makes your hair stand on end, which is why you know the story that has been told. But it's too late now, because you have entered the world of spirits. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, because the whole story is the truth. It's behind you. They say that if you have listened to this point, the last part will only be the music for you to hear. Until this song ends, you will feel it. Show. It is the next generation of Saya.